What's up, hockey fans and hockey fanatics out there? Welcome to episode 12 of the Hockey Lounge. It is Monday, July 5th, 2021, and we're rocking the lounge at 7 p.m. We're about an hour away from puck drop of the Tampa Bay-Montreal series. Tampa Bay is up 3-0, and Lord Stanley could make a visit on the ice in Montreal this evening. Should be a great tilt. But first, we have athletic training ground co-owner and strength conditioning coach, Chris Myers. Chris, welcome to the lounge.
Thanks for having me, Nick. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. I think Chris is live from the gym right now, so we might hear a little bit of background noise.
Apologies if you hear music or if I need repetition of the questions. We got a bunch of athletes in here right now, so this is our crazy time right now, so it's a little busy, but happy to join you.
Fantastic. So tell us about number one, how you got into this in terms of your hockey pedigree and how ATG, the athletic ground, came about.
So basically, I played hockey at a competitive level growing up. I was drafted in the OHL, and this was back in, I think it was 99, to be honest. So pre-millennium. So
yeah.
It was a bit ago. And to be honest, when I was playing, fitness wasn't like a huge component of it. It was always something, but it was never something that seemed to be at the forefront of athletes getting ready to move to the next level. So I was a smaller guy. I was, maybe 5'10", 165 kind of thing when I got drafted. So I was always told, basically, even going into the draft, that I was, I was too small and not heavy enough to be projected to go as high as basically what they said my talent was. So I always kind of took an interest in training because I had the impression that was something that was very, very important for me if I ever wanted to get anywhere, just because of what I was being told, right? So
yeah,
I don't think I started training until the year I was drafted to the OHL, maybe the year before. And luckily I only did it because my brother was in the OHL, I played for the Guelph Storm, so I kind of tagged along with him. But if I was just like your average hockey player without a brother in the system and all that, we didn't do much off ice training. Everything was about getting on the ice. So I took a very big interest in that because I found that it gave me an opportunity because I jumped into it early and I took a real liking to the fitness that this could be kind of my edge to kind of get in. So the game has changed a lot now. Now it's, even with me, like I'm training 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
In my time, that was unheard of. Like,
right. Yeah.
It was almost frowned upon.
Right. So you mentioned the 8-year-olds, Chris, and
yeah.
And tell us about how young your groups start at, and what made you decide to get into. You talked about getting drafted to the Guelph Storm and the fitness level or whatnot, but to start these young athletes at a young age, which was very rare at the time. You didn't have personal trainers, you didn't have these training gyms per se. All the off ice and on ice trainers that are out there from when I played, when you got drafted in 1999 till now. So the age group that you're starting to train the last couple of years, like what's the youngest?
I've had 6-7-year-olds.
Okay.
And to me that was very hard because I'm kind of the old school belief in the system where I feel like kids need time off. I feel like a lot of the kids that I've seen in just through my business since I've done this, you can tell that they're just so young that you don't know if they actually want it. A lot of it's being kind of pushed on them, and I've seen some kids burn out once they get to 13, 14, where they quit. because it's such a demand at such a young age. And I remember, like, I had a real hard time trying to cope with giving stuff up when I was 15. And obviously when you get to that age, it's a little different because you're giving up more social kind of stuff. But uh, I I've really struggled with the idea of having kids in at a young age because you want them to be kids. So, but at the same time, I'm realizing the more I've done this, where it's like the kids that are starting at that age, uh, they have a very big advantage once they get to the age, that draft year age and stuff like that, because they understand the idea of work ethic. They understand what it takes, what you have to put into it to get somewhere. So I've had 6, 7-year-olds, parents coming to me, teams coming to me at that age. And what I've tried to do is try to embrace it instead of push against it, and make it a little bit more fun. Because I think the big thing with hockey is a lot of kids are losing the fun out of it because everything's so serious.
Right.
And there's a lot of pressure, and that's something that maybe we can get to later, but that's something that kind of was my demise, was just the pressure. And I'm thinking that didn't start for me until I was 15. So I can't imagine 6, 7 years old thinking that if I don't go on to the gym today, if I don't go to that, somebody's got an edge on me. So we do that, but my big thing is I really try to make it at that age less serious, but try to implement those initial stages to these hockey players in terms of building good habits, mentally, physically, all that, and try to incorporate it all into one where you can make it fun, where they want to come and they're not forced to come. And maybe they don't realize it, but at the same time, they're working on their foundations that are going to help them once they get a bit older and they can get into the weights and they can get into a little bit more serious stuff, where they've built those foundations up where everything kind of starts to come easy to them, instead of trying to learn at that kind of that last minute age where you're kind of struggling and you're panicking to try to get ready. So that's kind of, in terms of that age, that's what I really try to do. And every age group is so different in terms of how I train them. I think it's unique, but you have to make it fit. So these kids at this age, you can't expect them to think like a 15-year-old. No matter how serious they are, there's always that, that you want them to be a kid. So try to incorporate all that into one where they're having fun when they're doing it. And it doesn't feel like it's something they're being forced to go do through their parents or through their coaches and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the kids being, let's say, 7, 8, 9, the question I get a lot of times, coaching different hockey teams and different age groups and levels would be, so strength and conditioning. You mentioned that you bring in somebody at that age group per se. Yeah. What are your thoughts with, again, they're not lifting weights at that age. I wouldn't. Yeah. So what type, again, your services that are, if the viewers are watching today, tomorrow, whatever, in terms of services for, a 7, 8-year-old, 9-year-old per se, what are they doing? What type of skills drills are they doing? The biggest question I get, and I'm sure you get it from parents too as well, when I'm coaching, is how can my kid get faster?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's speaking to how the game has changed, right? Again, when I was younger, it was all about size. Nobody spoke about speed. It was almost like one of those things where, like, if you had speed, it was like, oh, you're lucky you have that skill, and that's going to help you. But it was almost just like they're not trying to teach speed and explosiveness; they're trying to teach size. And they figured that once they get to that level, then they can teach them that, but they already have these other intangibles that they thought was very important in the game. So I just think of like the basic foundations where it's and the reason I say that is when I first started this, there was a lot of kids. Again, it was that time where 6, 7-year-olds weren't coming here. It was like 12, 11, 12, 13 and upwards. And I found that the stuff that I wanted to start to teach them, because they're going to hitting and all that kind of stuff in terms of physicality, I had to backtrack way back to the basic foundation stuff. And we were spending a lot of time on stuff where I'm like, man, if kids had this kind of stuff at a younger age,
Yeah.
then when they come in at that age, when the real work kind of, the heavy grunting work starts, I'm not having to backtrack to see if they can go through a ladder with footwork, balance, just basically learning how to use your core, how to activate it, how to utilize it, so that the other things, when you get into it, come more naturally and easy to you. So for that age group, I don't bring out a single weight. I don't want to get them into that, because I find too a lot of times that mentally that can mess guys up, because it's all about how much weight you're lifting, right? Especially at these younger ages.
Yeah, and so, but getting back to that, Chris, in terms of the old question of how old should you start lifting weights? Back in the day when I played, or my teammates, there was always that notion out there that if you started lifting too young, it would stunt your growth, or you'd stay the same size. But you just talked about with an 8-year-old or 9-year-old, it's more about coordination, balance, speed, agility, those types of things. But if you were a parent out there and you're looking at buying a set of dumbbells or whatever, or they're coming to ATG, let's say, and what age group should you really start lifting?
I think it depends on what you're lifting. So a lot of the times, if I have young kids in, we make sure that we have like those 3-pound dumbbells, those 2-pound dumbbells, those 5-pound dumbbells, because it's not something that's going to break their body down. It's not going to cause any stress or on their body, but they can use them in certain movements in terms of learning how to like grip, like how you're going to grip it. Because a lot of times I'll have kids come in and they haven't done it, and they go to lift a weight, and they can lift a weight, but it's, their arms are shaking and their stabilizers are kind of all over the place, because they're not used to picking something up and putting it through a range of motion. So it's hard to say in terms of like when you should start lifting weights, because it really depends on, what does that mean? How much weight are you lifting? Are you talking about lifting heavy weight in terms of hypertrophy or strength, or are you talking about learning how to control a weight, or how to go through a range of motion when you're holding some load on your body? So I don't want to say I don't use weights, because a lot of times we'll have those light weights that we give those kids. But again, it's more about getting them used to being in that position where, if you're lifting a weight above your head, how to keep your core contracted when you're doing it, so that when you do get into the heavier weights, you're not dealing with that stabilization issue or that balance or that core issue. Your body has an idea of how to hold a certain load, regardless of how much it is, and go through the motion where you're allowed to let's say your legs go through the motion, and it's not stopping the movement because you just can't hold that weight above your head, because you're just not used to having something with load above your head. So I don't think anybody should be lifting like heavy weight in terms of stuff that's going to like, in terms of hypertrophy, which is breaking down your body, wanting to build muscle and stuff like that. It's hard to say, because kids are developing so much quicker now.
Right.
Like when I was 12, there wasn't kids that I see that are 12 years old coming in here now. So
yeah,
a lot of it is based on the client. And that's why we really focus on having a private facility where we can take that, that group of clients that are in there, or individually, and really learn about where they're at and how their body is functioning and what they can handle. And some of them might go into it a little bit earlier. Some of them might need a little bit more development. But the main thing is we really want to develop kids at a younger age to be able to, when they get to that age, when that stuff comes, that they're not now going to the basics and wasting that time, just, focusing on just how do you activate your core before you start lifting that weight to do it properly. they have all that foundation down, and then it's just about getting them into it and progressing them at their rate of what's best for them.
So that's for the youngins. Let's say the 7, 8, 9-year-olds, and then we're talking about guys that are, and girls that are playing really competitive hockey per se, and they're getting into teenage years, and with that being said, today or tonight you have Tampa Bay and Montreal playing tonight at 8:00. It could be the last game of the NHL season, so now the off season could begin as of tomorrow. And I know that in many conversations you and I have had, what does off-season training look like for a hockey player? So some of the services you provide for the older, let's say, hockey player looking to, maybe make the next level, if it's from AA to AAA, or that, that player looking to get to the next level in terms of minor hockey to junior. What should that off-season look like in terms of, days training, how many days you should have off, how long should your workouts be? Run us through that.
Yeah. I think when it comes down to this, and just from being in the industry, I know a lot of strength and conditioning coaches. There's a wide range of belief in terms of what's best for the athlete, and it's evolved over time. I know, like when I was playing, it was all about like get on the ice. Now there's even guys like Bobby Orr coming out and saying like get off the ice. Get that little breakaway, get that mental break, let your body have the break, build it up strength-wise off the ice, or maybe it's not right into the game that you're playing 6 days a week once you start to get competitive, and having that step away. So that's a big proponent as to why I don't do on-ice training. I've had a lot of requests to do that. I'm the belief system where it's like it's important to get on the ice, but at the same time, I think you want to make all the gains in the off season off the ice, so that when you do get on the ice, those will translate onto the ice if it's done properly. But you've built it up so that on ice stuff isn't just repetition, the same thing over and over. It's now going back over those reps with maybe a bit more strength, a bit more speed, a bit more explosiveness. And that's the tough part is parents ask me all the time, like, how many days should they be coming in? And I've always struggled with the whole thing of like, I think my career would have maybe been prolonged if I eased up a bit. If it wasn't so intense all the time, because I got to a point where the love for the game kind of came out of it, and it was more business. So, and I have friends that play in the NHL that say that the last time they really, really, really enjoyed hockey was their last game in the OHL. Because it's a little bit more free flow. It's a little bit more about the game and having a good time and really enjoying what you're doing, and not going into the meat market where you're just it's a meat for everybody, right? So that's been my struggle, is like, where's that fine line of how do we allow these kids to grow up and be kids, but not take away from their opportunity because you're being too much of a kid and all these other kids are putting in the time and the effort, and that might give them that slight edge once they get to that spot. So I'm very big on phasing off season. It depends on the off season, how long it is.
So if we're talking, Chris, if we're talking off season of, playoffs end in minor hockey, March, April, you're looking at a full 4 or 5 months before the season starts in a normal year in September. So what are you looking at?
The way I usually do it in a normal off season, this year's been a little bit wonky, but if let's say we have almost 6 months total in between, I like to do like a 3-phase off season. So I think coming off the season, there needs to be a little bit of a break. The kids need a little bit of a break to decompress, get away a little bit mentally from it, because they've been playing all year. Teams that go deep are playing all the time, especially at minor hockey. There's tournaments, there's all that. So maybe like a 2-week period where they just get to just kind of chill out and give everything a break, mind, body, everything. And then I always like to do kind of a 3-phase off season where I think at the beginning is the time where strength is going to be the most efficient. So they get off their season, they're ready to come in. They're a little bit fresh because they've had that break. They don't have anything coming up in terms of intense on ice stuff. But that's tricky too because a lot of kids are playing summer hockey. So that has kind of changed everything because normally on a normal off season, if they're just going out and skating and getting their own ice just to condition, it's a little bit different. But if they're at tournaments, it's kind of iffy because you want to do that strength stuff with them, but when you're lifting heavy weight and you're trying to build all that strength, you're going to be a little bit tighter. You're going to have, your body's going to take a little bit more of a load. And if you're going out and playing a tournament that weekend and you're explosive and something can tweak, something could kind of pull on you there. And that's why during in-season training, I don't do a lot of strength stuff. I think it's more mobility and pliability and flexibility for the muscles. To be able to get through that grind, because I don't think you're going to make many strength gains during the year. So I like to do that at the beginning of the off season, and I like to go into more of like a contrast training where we're working on some strength mixed with explosiveness. And then I always, I'm very adamant on 3 or 4 weeks before the season is going to kick off the training camp to just focus on letting the weights go and just being mobile and flexible and rested and more kind of injury prevention stuff so that when you do go into it, your body is ready to take on everything that's coming at it, because I don't think lifting weights for 2 or 3 weeks before the season is going to make a difference. So I like to phase it that way, but it's been very difficult to.
Hey Chris, just lost you there. Just losing you in and out here.
Did you get me?
Yeah, you're sort of losing in and out. Maybe you want to try to log back on. All right, guys. So just Chris is having some problem with the internet right now, but let's talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Montreal Canadiens tonight. So if Tampa does win the Stanley Cup tonight, it'll be the first time since 2016, 2017 when the Pittsburgh Penguins won back-to-back cups. Before that, it was the Detroit Red Wings, and then it was the Edmonton Oilers, I believe. So tonight should be interesting. It should be interesting to see who wins the Conn Smythe. Vasilevsky, Braden Point, a bunch of different players are definitely in the running. And Carey Price, before this series, was having a great playoff run. So let's see if we can get Chris back here in the lounge. We'll see. It seems like he's having some technical difficulties tonight with the internet. But otherwise than that, it should be an exciting game. A lot of decent stats out there. The offseason should be really, really interesting. There's a lot of rumors out there. Seth Jones, where is he going to end up? You're looking at the free agent signings that the Leafs have done in the last week or so with Spezza and Simmons. And then you have some of the big names that are out there. Tarasenko from the St. Louis Blues, will he be able to regain his composure from the season lost? And his name is on the market. You have a bunch of different players that are out there. You have a bunch of UFA goalies that are out there as well. Who's going to be getting signed? Trying to get Chris back. Here we go. All right, Chris, you're back on.
Yeah. Oh, we're good. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So I was just talking about different players and different things that are going on in the NHL right now. So one of my friends and friends of the lounge, the tipster, Santi, saying there's going to be 5 goals scored in the game tonight, so take the over. So there's the tips. Ooh. Tips. There you go. So Chris is back. So we were just talking about the off-season training regiment. And so if you're let's say a 13, 14-year-old boy or girl looking to, really train hard over the off season here in the summer, how many days per week are you looking at, Chris?
At that age, I always suggest like 2 or 3. it's a fine line because once you get to like, the year before your draft year or whatever, that's the guys that are serious. In my experience, like your son and everything,
Mm.
they want it at that point. So it's a little bit easier to kind of like amp it up, and they get the concept of, they got to put in maybe a little bit more time than they would in most things, right? Just
Mm.
based on the sport and the competition and the odds of making it and all that. Uh, at like 12 or 13, uh, I think 2 or 3 days is good because I always suggest uh, multi sports at that age where it's, get out and do something else that's going to help your athletic ability, that's going to take your mind away from hockey.
Mm.
Uh, and I have no problem with kids that are very serious and just all they think is eat, breathe, sleep hockey.
Mm.
Uh, but I'm kind of going off of my own experience personally, and a couple of kids that I've worked with where, uh, you know, myself and them, they hit that burnout stage maybe too early. Uh,
Mm.
and even though like I wanted it, I know I was being forced to go to this stuff when I had to, but uh, life happens, social happens. You get that age. There's girls, there's partying, there's all that stuff, and
Yeah.
you start getting crowds in the stands, like people. I tell the story all the time. Like I used to come down after when I played junior B, and like
Mm.
fans were giving me envelopes of money. Like
Mm.
it's a whole different. It's very hard to grasp it at that age and not let it get to your head, and stay grounded and realize that you're not special yet.
Not yet. Not
You're
yet.
not that guy yet. And
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
that when that stuff starts happening, it's kind of easy to take your foot off the gas because talent can get you pretty far.
For
Uh,
sure.
it's the work. I have lots of guys. I tell everybody all the time. Lots of guys I played with that were less talented. Those are the guys that made it.
Mm.
A lot of guys I
Yeah.
played with that were
Absolutely.
very talented, and maybe one made it.
Yeah. We talked about that.
Because a lot of stuff is when it's kind of handed to you and put on a platter. Uh, you know, Eventually when you get to the OHL, that's what I know. It's like everybody's equal.
Yeah.
You're there. There's no longer that disconnect between the top players and the fillers, right? It's
For sure.
even the fourth line guys are like, their first line guys in Bantam and midget and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, that's when I think you start to realize it. And if you're burning out, getting up to that point, it's a mental game. It's a mental battle, uh, and it's very hard to now go inside and find that in yourself when you feel like there's a part of you, like I always felt in my head where I was just like, man, like putting in so much time, and
Mm.
like what's it really doing for me? And then
Mm.
all that starts to play games in your head too. So uh, I like that age, like what you're asking, maybe two or
Yeah.
3 days a week. Um, but I think nowadays, just based on the way the game's going and how everything's progressing, once you get to like, that year before your draft year,
Mm.
I think if you really want to make it, I don't think it's an option anymore. I think it's you need that 4 or 5 days of
Yeah.
just immersing yourself in it, and because there's always a guy that's going to be working another minute.
Right.
It's
Like,
cliche, but
yeah, it is. It is.
a game
Yeah.
today, like
Yeah.
that's truly how it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So we got a question here from Berlon, friend of the show. Chris, how should a young players allot their focus in terms of physical? I think that's literacy there, weights, technique. Neither get in tune with their body.
yeah, I right away again. That's where I go back to. I suggest now when parents ask me, I'm like, if their kid's 8 or 9, I'm like, get them in. Uh, let's get that foundation stuff down. Let's make it fun. Make it competitive. Because I find a lot of kids too at that age, losing something, they're in the corner crying. Um, so I think that's a good lesson in the beginning where it's like, if this is what you want to get into and this is what you care about, it's going to get a lot darker in terms of that stuff. And you know, you have to start preparing yourself where you have to let these kids know where it's like it's not right maybe, but you're going, if you want to get to where you are looking to achieve, you're going to be the piece of meat. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to be forgotten if you have, a couple bad things. You're going to be sent down to the farm team, the fourth line. You're going to be yelled at and pointed out on the video in the video room in front of a team. So I think the mental part at the young age is the most, along with the foundation stuff. I think if you have that down, I think anybody can go in and get stronger and lift weights. I don't care who it. I don't care what size you are or whatever. I think anybody has that capability to put in the work. And I've seen a lot of smaller guys lift a lot more weights than I do. So I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's, you got to have your head on right, and you got to know what it takes, and you have to be willing, and you have to have tough skin too. So
yeah. So when it comes down to, again, like, you talk to some of the, dinosaurs back in the day here, in terms of their training regiment and how many days, like 5 days, 6 days. And then it also comes down to, how long is your session? I know growing up, you do the weights, then you get on the treadmill or the bike, and your workouts would be like an hour and a half just to get a good sweat. You'd get that garbage bag, you'd cut the top of it.
I've done it.
You slide it on, and you just sweat your nuts off, right? But it's different now, though. Like all the stuff you're doing with the players that I know of, that I've coached, it's different. Like, so how long should a really good workout last?
Yeah, I always like to equate things back to like the sport you're training for. So that's why I stick with hockey, because I think every sport is very different. So if you're a first line player at any level, you're double shifting, you're playing in a tournament, your coach is throwing you out. I don't think anybody's played over maybe 30 minutes. And even when they talk about the NHL, like, they're like, oh my gosh, this guy played 26 minutes. They're like, how did he survive? And you're sitting there thinking, like, it's 26 minutes.
Right.
You know what I mean? And sometimes your mind compares it to other sports. Like, look at soccer. Like, they're running for 90 minutes. Some of them don't come off. And they're not stopping, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of hockey, like, I like the idea of overtraining them a bit so that they're kind of ready for anything that comes, instead of like training them exactly for what might come at them, so that if anything spills over, if there's a little bit more, they're done. And that's why I always think, to me, the hour and a half workout thing is I don't know the word to use, dinosaur, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Like you said, because when you're playing hockey, things happen fast. Shifts happen fast. Power plays happen. Penalty kills happen. Pulling the goalie happens. All these situations can come up. And an hour and a half workout, and I've done bodybuilding, I've done all that fitness stuff. You're maybe only working out for 20 minutes, 25 minutes max. Because all the other stuff is sitting around waiting in between and sitting on a machine, and your central nervous system, all that stuff's not really activated. It's very going through the motions. So I've always kept mine to 45 minutes, because I feel like when you're going to work out, the best bang for your buck and the best you're going to get out of it, especially for hockey, is if you go hard for 45 minutes with minimal rest, you're never going to hit that 45-minute mark on the ice. You might hit 30. So you got 15 minutes to spare, where your body is used to high tempo, things getting thrown at it, and not just laying on a bench and going through it. Your whole body's working. Your mind's working, your cardio's working, your strength is working, your explosiveness is working, your agility, all that stuff. So I think the quicker you can activate your body through all these things, the more you're going to be prepared for the sport. So I don't like going over 45, and I have a lot of clients that are like 45 minutes, like, because they're so used to the status quo. Like, when you hire a trainer, it's an hour. I'm like, I can give you an hour, but that extra 15 minutes is going to be rest time. So do you want to pay for your kid to rest, or do you want them to come in and put their body and their mind through a similar situation of what's going to happen when they're playing a high-paced, up-tempo sport? So that's kind of how I work. I think you can get everything in that time if it's done properly. And there's always that time at the end if there's a little bit of buffer time where you can get them doing a little bit of flexibility stuff, because I think the biggest thing in hockey now is a lot of it's injury prevention, because you can't do anything if you're not on the ice, right? So you can overtrain and lift as much weight as you want, but if you're not on the ice, it's not going to do much for you. So
you're bringing up a point there, Chris, and we'll get to Ethan's question in 1 second here, but there's been a lot of talk over the last 3 or 4 years. You're seeing a lot of injuries in junior. You're seeing a lot of injuries in the pros and the NHL level. And it's funny enough, because what they're saying is that basically a lot of majority of the hockey players don't have any type of body fat. And so they're talking about, back in the 80s, the 90s, where, guys were, they were training, but not as hardcore as they're training now. They had more body fat. So you saw less of, broken collarbones, less separated shoulders, less injuries to the upper body per se, because there was a little bit more, let's say, meat to the bone.
Yeah.
But now guys are so fit, there's no body fat. Injuries are happening every game, in the NHL as well as junior. So what are your thoughts on that? Is there a point where, listen, you want to get ripped, you want to get buffed, you want to look good, but also too, is there a balance here on, looking good, looking ripped, but also being in that shape to play the game?
Yeah. I make this joke all the time where I'm like, the guys I know that play pro hockey, if they were to walk down the street and take their shirt off, nobody would know they play pro hockey. You get the odd freak, like the Brendan Moores, there's a guy for the Islanders, I forget, it might be Sezikis, or there's a couple of guys, but those guys are just, they'll do the same work, but they're just genetic freaks. They're just very low body fat, and a lot of them did that because they're not like new NHL players. They're not like fresh in, where they did a lot of that bodybuilding, a lot of that foundation building of muscle. I have a lot of guys that I played with that, because the way when I broke in and we were going into the NHL tryouts and stuff where it was all about size, every single one of them I know has actively been working on getting smaller, getting lighter, getting leaner, less muscle mass, and not, it's the right areas. You don't need, big biceps and big chest are going to hinder you in hockey. I know one guy I played with, and he said that he's like, I lost my agility, my mobility, my quick hands, my shiftiness, because I bulked up to put on that extra 10 pounds. But I'm tight, or I'll get hit in the boards and my shoulder will go one way and my back will go the other, and I tweak something because all the muscles are tight and they're built and they're hard and there's not a lot of pliability. So that has changed a lot. I always tell the hockey players I train, I'm like, the last thing you should care about is how you look, because if you want to look like the magazine cover, you're actually hindering preparing for your sport of what's going to give you benefit.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to be out of shape. And people have to remember too, like during the year, like you're going to lose like 10, 20 pounds. Just based on the amount you're playing. And like I said, I'm not weight training and doing heavy stuff with guys during the year, because that's putting them in a danger position if they're playing 4, 5, 6 days a week, because their muscles are going to be tight and they're not going to have that mobility and pliability to get pushed and bounce back. Things are going to pull, they're going to tweak, they're going to all that stuff. So basically, to answer that, I think that's why in season and off season are so different. And I don't think the young hockey players should be trying to look like Instagram models. I don't think it's
like a Ryan Kessler.
Yeah, and that's like it's a lot of them point to like that one or two guys that do it, and I'm like, like there's the reason there's one or two guys, and it's they're doing they might be training the same way that everybody else is, but it's like anything even with bodybuilding, there's genetics that come into play. There's there's that stuff, right? And like I said, in my experience, even when I was playing, like I learned very quickly that my off season was 90% mobility, flexibility. I didn't care to put on 10 pounds. I kind of had to, because that was the way the game was. I was being told I had to come back like that. But very rare now you're seeing guys get sent home and they're playing pro and be like, put on 15 pounds. And it depends how you put it on. I mean, put it on in your legs and your glutes, sure. Your core. You want to bulk those up a bit. That's only going to make you stronger as long as you're still working on your explosiveness and your speed. But shoulders, chest, bicep, all that stuff, it's not going to benefit you. So I've switched over to a lot of my off season is doing that little strength phase at the beginning, and then try to get out of it, and really, really make sure that I'm more worried about guys lasting the season at this point, than, throwing that two big hits that maybe 5 pounds extra is going to do for you. So, and the way the game is going too now, you look at all the guys that are the top players in the NHL, many of them are under 6 feet, under 180 pounds. So why not work on, being agile and shifty and being able to get out of the way and be on the ice more, be in the right spots, as opposed to going to the corner and surviving with that big guy, right?
For sure. So Ethan Cabral, one of the guys that you work out, just threw a message out here. He said, what's a mistake you think a lot of young players make in terms of training?
In terms of training?
Yeah.
I think a lot too much of it is put on how much weight's on you're pushing. And that's a fine line, because again, like when I do a strength phase, it's all about getting them to push, try to maximize how much they're pushing or pulling, right? But I think there's still that, because a lot of times it's the parents that are orchestrating this stuff, right? And the parents, and I don't blame them, because if I wasn't immersed into this fitness industry, I don't know how I would think. I'd probably go back and base it off of how everything was when I was playing and what happened to me, right? So I think a lot of them too many people are focused on the scale, and I hear it all the time where they're like, oh, like I just want to do something, like I need to put like 10 pounds on so that my draft card doesn't say 160, it says 170. And I think the good thing about the game today is that the right scouts, the right team, the right managers, the right people looking are, and I know a guy on Central Scouting, and he's like, it's probably the last thing we look at now. It's always there, because if they're like 5'2", 100 pounds, that's one thing, right? But you got guys like Caulfield and guys like Kucherov, sat out the entire year because he was hurt, had surgery. He's under 6 feet. He might be 180, and I don't know if that's true, to be honest. He's a smaller guy, and I've seen him in person. And if you saw him in person, you'd be like, it would probably blow your mind. Just looking at him and kind of sizing yourself up, where you're like, man, like.
I've seen him. I've seen him even with his shirt off, like you said. And you're like,
in dressing rooms, where I'm like, I'll look around the room. I'm like, I don't see one ab right now.
Because what you're seeing is some muscle, right? That's a lot of times what you see.
Yeah, they're just solid, and they're prepared for their sport. And the biggest thing I'm noticing is like they're just pliable. Like they'll get put in positions where you'll watch it and you're like, how did he not just rip his back apart? Like, how does his groin still attached?
Right.
And that's the game, because the speed, like, to me, that's way more important. And you saw it this year because of the shortened off season and stuff. Even in basketball, even in other sports, the amount of injuries is insane, because they haven't had the time to adjust and get that training down, and there's less off time. And that's why I tell a lot of parents sometimes, like, it's hard to do, but I'm like, they don't need to be in a skills camp every weekend in the summer. Like, let them chill out, let them. And that's why I don't feel bad about my business, because I'm like, put a ladder outside and let them do that. Like let him work on his speed, his foot speed. Let him work on that stuff where any sport, any athlete can do it. It's not hockey specific where they feel like they're totally immersed in it and they have no break. But they're building stuff and skills. They're going to help their sport and give them that little mental breakaway so that when they go back, they're fresh, they want it, they're hungry. So I think basically in a roundabout way to answer that, I think too many people are focused on the old school of what we think is going to be the best for an athlete instead of look ahead and try to get ahead of the curve and think about, there's only so much you could grow. Like my frame isn't going to go more than what it is. And if I want to put on 10, 15 pounds, that I have to dictate and I have to give my entire summer just to that. So I'm neglecting all the other stuff, right?
So you were talking about the mobility of a hockey player, any type of athlete. So, a lot of times you see, and I've been around minor hockey for, 30 plus years now as, coaching or whatnot. And with the younger athlete, the younger hockey player, the stretching and all that stuff before a game, after a game, is really, their bodies at that age, at a younger age, they're like elastics. They just, wrap up and wrap in, and they're good to go for another game or another practice or whatever per se. But as the athlete and hockey player gets older, especially towards the, I guess the puberty age where, you're developing, your bones are getting bigger. How important is that stretching prior to training, prior to game time, and after a game?
Yeah, it's very neglected.
Yeah.
And I've even been guilty with that when I first started my business, where it was like getting them in, do the workout, and then push them out the door. A couple of times I've stepped back and I'm like, you got to remember these kids are going through growth spurts. They're going through, like, their body is literally changing week by week, right? And maybe the week before they can bounce back because they're pliable and everything's good, but they might hit that growth spurt on a weekend.
It's true.
Next week they come in and they're doing the same stuff they're used to, and all of it's like when we get older, like we go through and we do a couple exercises and we're like, man, like I used to be able to do that with ease, and now I feel like I just tore my leg apart, right? But it's the same movement. You just kind of forget what stage your body's at, and that's why getting them in young. That's why I'm okay with it. I don't feel guilty like I used to bringing kids in at a young age because of what my beliefs were of everything I went through, where it's like, why not teach them to do all these types of things so that when their body is changing, they're aware of it, they think about it, they might focus on it a bit, they know what their body feels like, what it can go through, what it can't go through, what's pushing it too far, what needs to be focused on in terms of like loosening it up so that the next day it's not going to feel like that. It sounds easy when you're in the industry because you studied it, you've done it. But I always say that I'm like, if just the average person that's not in this, there's no way I would know. So getting those like little, so I almost call it like at that age, it's almost like tuition. Like you're learning all this stuff, you're not able to put it all into practice yet. But when you get into the real world, the higher levels of hockey, the work, all that stuff, jobs for a regular person. If you have that foundation, it's very easy to adjust. It's not overwhelming, and you take that mental stress out of it, and you're allowed to, just kind of put the work in and just show up, right? So I think that's a very important piece, and it's why when I went back to school, I went for sports psychology, because I think that's a very big missing piece, that if you get that at a young age, and it's not forced on you, and you don't feel like you're doing all this mental work, it's just kind of natural as you progress through it. And when somebody tells you something or explains something, you got your mind wrapped around it a little bit, and it's a little bit easier to handle and produce.
For sure. So we got a few minutes left here. So let's talk about how they can the viewer can get a. So we got one question here. So Marco Reyes, he just logged on. What is the most important thing that young athletes neglect? Get that in before we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's the mental side. And they're not neglecting it on purpose. It's just things that, it's something I didn't think about until it became a problem. Because you're growing up, and it's different for everybody, but you're so used to, like for me personally, it was like, you're used to being the go-to guy. You're used to being able to getting the opportunities. You're used to being the guy that they look to. And when you're at a younger age and everybody's kind of, there's a very big disconnect in terms of, talent, development, all that. And then once you hit it where everybody starts to kind of get on a level playing field, it messes with your mind. And that was the big thing with me, where it's like, I didn't think about that stuff. And then when it all started coming, I was like, how do I deal with all that and make sure the production on the ice and everything is leveling up as well? One of them always dropped because you felt like you had to put all the time to one thing, and then that in turn you neglect the other thing, right? Or you don't put as much effort or work into it, so you're not progressing as much and you're focused on one thing because you feel like lost on the one thing. So
right.
I think it's changing now. There's a lot of cognitive trainers and stuff like that are sports psychologists.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest thing is like, I always tell parents, I'm like, the best way for a kid to go into when they're getting older is like, be very black and white and know the situation ahead. And it's not supposed to deter people or push them away from it. It's just to know, like, here's the odds. Here's the odds. I'll do everything I can to do it, but I'm also aware that this isn't going to be something that everybody who puts in the work is going to get.
Right.
So what do I do when those situations come up? How do I fight through that? How do I decide if it's something that I'm willing to do? How do I deal with the fact if things go wrong? How do I pick myself back up? It's like training. Like I always tell people, the easiest thing is showing up and doing the workout. Like anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
But it's, what are you doing when you're not here, away from it? That's going to make sure that when you are coming in, that you're progressing and moving forward. So I think for hockey players, I think just really getting a grasp of like the whole mental side of it, knowing what it's all about, accepting it, being okay with it, building that tough skin up, and being okay with failure.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I didn't win anything when I was younger, so
yeah. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, that's why I always tell young kids, I'm like, even if you're single A minor novice, if you got a good team, I'm like, take everything you can from it and cherish it and learn from it, because you right now it seems like the opportunities are going to be there, and we all know it from the NHL. Like I know lots of guys playing the NHL that are Hall of Famers, that will be going to the Hall of Fame, and they haven't won anything, and you don't realize it until and that, I think that's part of the mental thing of just like getting your head wrapped around like being okay with whatever happens, and doing your part and realizing that you can't do everybody's part. And if you do your part, doesn't mean everybody else is going to, and it might not work out that year, and there's nothing you can do about it. So keep putting in your time, doing your part, accept what comes with that, be humble, enjoy it, because it disappears very quickly, and these are the things you look back on as a former hockey player, where it's like I said, I have friends that said the last time they enjoyed hockey was the last game of the OHL, and these are guys that are ones in the Stanley Cup final. So it's really, really understanding it's a business and what it is, and if you're okay with it, the things that come at you, you will deal with it, and you will succeed if it's your time.
Awesome. So if somebody wants to get a hold of Chris and Athletic Training Ground, what type of social platforms are there out there for you?
Yeah, we have an Instagram page, so we do a lot through that. We do tap into Facebook a bit. Our big thing, and what we've really loved, is that we're not huge into the marketing in terms of like Google and all that kind of stuff. We really get a lot of our athletes from word of mouth, through coaches, through teams, through organizations in the area, and I found that has allowed us to, for the most part, luckily, get very serious, good clients coming to us. Not throwing out what do you call those things? Those where you just put them out on the internet, Groupons.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've just found that people are finding us. The athletes that are serious are finding us. We make sure that we put stuff out on Instagram and stuff like that, so that I always tell the parents, I'm like, go there first. Look at what we do. I don't want to have to sell myself and tell you. We love the fact that they can go and we post videos, we post mashup videos, we post workouts, we post tip workouts, stuff like that. And we want people that we speak to and that speak to us, that are very serious. And we've been lucky that taking that route, maybe in terms of business financials, it's not always the thing that you're told to do, but we love all of our athletes. They're all here putting in the work. I don't feel like any of them are being forced to come here. So check out our Instagram. It's Athlete Training Ground. So at Athlete Training Ground. And all the links to our other social media is on that page. So we invite you to come check it out. I'd rather you see what we do than me tell you. And we always invite full families to come in, mom, dad, sisters, brothers, depending on who the athlete is. And we want to make sure that we take care of the whole athlete, so that includes the physical, the mental, the nutrition, all that kind of stuff. And because they're taking it serious, we love putting our time into that, and we don't overdo it, so that we can give our time.
All right, perfect. So last question I got before we got the 8:05 or 8 p.m. puck drop. So Athletic Training Ground is going to give us maybe a tip tonight on who Chris would be taking if he was putting some money on. Is tonight the night that Tampa lifts the cup, or are we going to see a Game 5 in Tampa on Wednesday?
Yeah, I was thinking about this today. I'm kind of torn because I'm a Leaf fan. So
yeah,
I've seen both extremes happen. To be honest, I tell everybody this. I think Montreal's a great team. I respect them. I'm a Leaf fan, and I'll never cheer for them, but I respect, as a hockey guy, what they put together and what they're doing. I just think their time's run out. I think they kind of hit their wall. They peaked more in the playoffs than they did the entire season. Maybe the first 5 games was similar that they had. But I just think Tampa Bay is too strong. I think they're built for this, and I think they said for the first time Carey Price might have under a .900 save percentage. He's getting close to that. So I think he's burnt out. I think he's done what he can. So I'm saying I think Tampa's gonna win like 6-1. I think they're gonna come out flying, and they're gonna bury them tonight, and that's what I see happening. But then another part of me, it's like, man, it wouldn't surprise me if Montreal wins like 4-2.
So it's so you're saying Tampa tonight, and I just got a text here. So I said Athletic, so it's Athlete Training Ground. My bad, Chris, on that one. The last one there, somebody just corrected me. So there's always correctors out there. It's a tough gig sometimes, right?
They're called trolls.
Yeah. Right. So I apologize, but For the viewers out there, we are going to be going live a couple more times this week. Either Wednesday, we'll see what happens tonight. We might go pregame on Wednesday. If not, we are going to be going live Thursday night at 9 p.m. and it'll be NHL discussion. It could be a wrap up of the NHL season, or we could be talking about, who knows, Game 6. And Chris and I are both maybe losing. We might be losing some money here, some way, somehow. Game 7. Yeah, exactly. I think actually I heard this today, Chris, and you're being a Leaf fan. I think the last time a team came back from a 3-0 deficit in the Stanley Cup Finals but the Toronto Maple Leafs came back. I believe it was like 1942.
Yeah.
Though
6 teams, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like playing street hockey with the guys on the street at that time.
Oh God.
But again, thanks for coming on the podcast. Really enjoyed you on here. Again, reach out to Chris. He's got a couple of platforms. Check him out on Facebook. Thank you again. And for everybody that's going to be watching the game tonight, it should be interesting. Have fun with that. And again, if you want to become a Lounge member, hit that subscribe button below or follow us on Instagram, The Hockey Lounge. Have a great night. Enjoy the playoff hockey. This could be the last game of the NHL season for 2021. So enjoy the hockey, and we will see you later on this week. Thanks,
awesome.
everyone.
Thanks for having me.